Hey everyone. Hi Scorpio. Okay, so anyone new to Opal Oracle, welcome. Nice to have you here. And of course, anyone returning, the latter statement applies. Now, I have an announcement before we begin. If you're wondering what I'm lighting, it's just pine needles that I found on the ground that the tree naturally got rid of. It smells really nice. It's mellow. I didn't hurt anything to get it, and it burns really slowly because it naturally it naturally fell, right? So now, Scorpio, I know that I don't have to tell you a lot of things because you already know, because you do a lot of consideration, okay? But it's important for everyone to know this if you're new on this journey. Now, tarot, I've been doing a lot of thinking lately, and with all these planets in retrograde and what I personally have transiting in my chart, which I'm sure you all have something heavy transiting in your chart, okay? Especially just Jupiter and Pluto, you know, it's a lot, Jupiter and Scorpio, but the point is that tarot is serious. It's not a game. And so there are two questions there's a question and an advice that has came to me to share with everyone. The first one is when you watch tarot readers, because the majority of you watch multiple readers, okay? It's very important to know. Yes, actually Sagittarius got this also. They came before you, by the way, so December has something to do for you. But you'll be able to tell who is experienced and who is not by the way that they communicate the cards, okay? By the way that it makes you feel. You already know this because it's very easy for you to pick out a faker, or someone who doesn't have your best intention, right? You always are sort of have to be on guard. And I know that's part of your karma, but I do want to say I'm sorry for that because I'm sure that that's uncomfortable at times and draining. So the question is, what would you do if the internet did not exist tomorrow? Like, in general, how would it affect you overall? A smaller component of that is if the internet was gone tomorrow and you've been watching tarot for X amount of time, right? And whatever teachers or guides or advice that you are receiving from whomever you are watching, right? You are the querent. I, for instance, am the reader at this point in time, right? It's very important to have a notepad and to take note of what it is that is being presented within the reading, and that in itself will help you to determine whether it is helping you build stronger structures and who that you are and all that you can be to ascend to your highest self. Or if it's, you know, you'll just be able to tell whether someone is helping you figure out, you know, build you towards self-mastery or not. Okay. Because again, if the internet wasn't here tomorrow, you know, sometimes it's hard to remember everything. It's important to write things down, documentation, like a physical documentation of something, right? Think about like the Emerald Tablets or the Bible or Lord Byron's poetry, whatever it is. Okay, Scorpio for August and beyond. Okay. Scorpio. Scorpio. Okay. I'll take that. Okay. Scorpio. Just a minute. August, Scorpio. It's a bit of back and forth energy here, okay? That's fine. That's just fine. It's sort of like weighing out what it is. I sense that whatever it is that you're weighing out, though, has a lighter energy to it. It's not where you're like trying to balance out this heavy darkness. Just a minute. You have 2 8s, 2 7s. 2 cup cards. 3 cup cards, excuse me. That's good. That's about friendship. I actually see that there is a building of friendship here. There's a building of... Just a second. I heard, "Don't you take my happiness away." I don't even think that's a song, but that's what I heard. I see it's really important to, like, you're basically, like, whatever it is that you're working on, whatever it is that you're building, I see that you're not letting anyone get in your way, okay? There's something about that. I see that you're, you are working deeply on the relationship with yourself, you know? It's good. Like, how much do you love you? How much do you love you? This is a little lion up here. You know, the masculine and the feminine side of yourself. Because you know, Scorpio, the majority of you know. Soulmate, twin flame, give me a break from all that. Not that love isn't good, right? But you have to love yourself first. I heard all the quirks, all the eccentric, whatever, all of it, like, love you. And that's the energy that you send out of your body, okay? That, I see that you're working on that. And that's important. Now, it doesn't mean that you're not going to have days where you're a little bit more reserved. And on those days, there's an advice to take notice of, instead of, if you start to go within to try to protect yourself, because I do see a triangulation, though if you were looking at it, it goes like this. No, I'm sorry. If you were here, if you were me looking with me, it would be this. I'm trying to see, because it's backwards where you do it. it would be, I guess, a C shape like this, like Kenaz, and then there's Isa. So Kenaz is about vision, but Kenaz actually means boil. Like when you're sick and you get a boil on your skin, and what happens is the children used to die from that. And so it's kind of like that's a boil on your skin, right? And then you'd get an infection, and the children, again, were a little bit more susceptible. So what happens is there's great, kind of like the death card, there's great knowledge that comes through, that sort of pain, right? If you survive it. And then Isa is something that is frozen or something that is still, so it's almost as if you've taken the pain, the boil that you've had to go through, the boiling in yourself emotionally, the boiling, all this. I see fire and water strong, okay? That's the cauldron and the fire underneath it. And it's like now you're figuring, the pot is you're in control now, and like you're putting the cover on the cauldron. It's not to say that things aren't still simmering, but it's not overboiling, it's not empty and cold, it's not broken, right? You're figuring out that you're the tender of your own fire. You're the maker of your own life. You determine which way that you go. I see it's important to speak of yourself and what it is that you want to create or make in this life physically, particularly when it has to do with money, because Taurus is your opposite, and there's much that every opposite, this came to me last year strongly to share, because you already have all those aspects of Taurus within you, okay? And it's nice because whatever was kind of stagnant within Taurus is also being rejuvenated, or like, well, I heard rejuvenated, but it's also, you know, with Uranus, it's just shaking it up some, okay? And that's good. I do see you protecting your heart still. But I also see you really working on it, and that's wonderful. You know, it's hard to do. You know? When you feel like you got to be on guard a lot about what it is that you know, about what it is that you feel, what you can feel from others, what you can sense subconsciously, like seeing things that other folks wouldn't consider being there, but they exist, and you know that they do. And that's a wonderful part of you. It doesn't mean that it's not scary sometimes, and you're like, I need to protect, I need to protect myself. And the cool thing is you know how to protect yourself if necessary, and I feel like you're learning how to do it, protecting yourself from that energy internally, like, and I sense that it's a lot of this releasing that's been happening because Jupiter and Scorpio's been for the last 9 months, right? So that's like having a baby. You know, you grew you were working on something, and you have to be patient, right? With the Empress, you got to be really patient. And now what happens? Well, now you can bring that into the physical world and start filling in the holes, or realize that you don't even want to be there anymore, whatever it is, but you want to make sure you take a gander in all those holes that you've been digging, right? Whatever you've been expanding out, make sure that you're not missing anything. I saw something shiny in the bottom of one, something sort of silver, and there was something little gold, something like that, okay? The moon and the sun, right? The masculine and the feminine. Now, speaking of nines, I sense that some of you could be trying to figure out like work options, like what you're supposed to be working on. Maybe there are multiple. I always see this as like projects. I mean, some of these projects are, you know, psychologically speaking, of course, but it's also, I guess with all the retrograde, it's sort of about, it's the intention. It's the, okay, I have an idea. How can I organize my energy enough so that well, I heard put your money where your mouth is, but then it said there was like a put your money where your heart is. So maybe that's about, that could be, you know, what you truly desire in your heart has something to do with the physical world, maybe because of Taurus, right? You're figuring out that you can do that in some way. That you have that stability, okay? This, it can represent a lot of things, but I sense that it's like you're here now. This is step one. Then we have step two. Then when we get to step three, it's like, I feel like it's important for you to communicate what step three is. Okay, so you, again, you have an idea now. And if this isn't physical time, right? Of course you can be working on things at home, working on little bits, working out, I heard the details on something. But it's not quite time for action because you're still, there's still something energetically blocking, and I sense that that's astrological. Okay. Now, I also see that it's okay for you to commute. It's okay for you. You are safe, you are loved, and you are protected, and you are definitely safe enough to express what your heart says, okay? I see for a lot of you, you're spending a lot of time alone. All these cards are singular except for the Two of Cups, okay? So it's important, whoever you can trust, to continue to build on that. You know, whoever you feel comfortable with. This is sort of like understanding another person, whatever the context is. It doesn't matter. It's just emotional, and it seems real, you know, because it is real. And it's interesting I said seems, because that's sort of like, are you sure? Sorry if you can hear the neighbors downstairs. They watch the same television show every night, and the theme song's very loud, and I don't know what it is. I don't have a television. But anyway, I think it's a comedy show, like Life, I guess. Now, there is this air sign, and they're kind of like, I'm here to save the day. I don't know if you can see this. It's the Knight of Swords. But they're racing into the past. But it doesn't quite feel like they're going into, of course they're facing the past, but I don't know, let me see. What is this Knight about? Well, that answered those two. Okay, just a minute. The number 4 is strong here. I think it's because of Jupiter in your first, well, overall the collective of Scorpio. So what landed on the Knight of Swords, for those of you who like tarot? You have the 8 of Cups upright, the Empress, and your card, the King of Cups. Now, we just came out of Cancer season. Things about the mother, right, it's heavy. I also had an epiphany, which you probably already put the dots together, but I'll share it with you because I know you don't judge me when I speak, and thank you for that, who I am, you know. But where Cancer season is the moon, right? The mother, the mind, the crab. It's like hidden under the rocks, and it's like barely, you know, it's pretty cautious too. Another cautious water sign, right? But then it's Leo season, and then you're like born, and you're like, you know, you're out of the womb, and you're like in life, and you're alive, and it's bright out, and it's like too hot, and, you know, and that's an extreme contrast. You know, it's natural, but it is an extreme contrast. So I think that the emotions of Cancer season are still here. You now have 3 8s on the board, okay? That's a 24 that breaks down to a 6. I actually saw the number 6 for you when I was shuffling. I see that there's still a little bit of emotional confusion about it, like the complete processing of that. But you are learning much about it. In addition, you were also learning about externally communicating about that. Like, that's okay to talk about that, right? Because this can also be, any of the kings can also be fathers, you know, the mother and the father, like walking away from psychological things, or just, you know, I don't know about you, and I feel like you feel it like this all the time, but lately I've been having a lot of situations, like I had kind of put the pieces together where all the places that I lived had been places that I died. In this apartment specifically, I know that I can't tell in the vision if I killed this person or but I was on the stairs looking up and seeing it, and a man killed a woman there, but I feel like I was looking at me being killed. And then the other day, this person followed me for a long time out of the gas station into my town, and I knew they were following me, and so I took a right. I went off the main drag because I didn't want them to see where I lived, because it's a small town, right? And like went over to the post office, pretend like I had something to do over there. Well, they happened to turn too. And then I was just like, what the fuck? And then they pulled behind me, so I couldn't even move, and it was scary, right? I had this whole vision, like I could feel it in my body, like I had been here before. I knew what this was, and really it was frightening. And it was broad daylight, you know, it wasn't even like I was alone. There were people, you know, well, there ain't that many people, there's cars going by and stuff, but so I stuck my head out of the window, and I was just like, can I help you? And I like kind of made a face. And because the guy in the passenger seat is the one I recognized. And he was a little skeezy and kind of scary to me. The energy was something off about it. Well, the driver ended up getting out, and it was like his dad. And it was like a really old man, like a grandpa. And then I felt awful because I was just like, oh my God, this grandpa just needed to go to the post office. But what I was feeling, what I was sensing was about that other person, and like this old connection that didn't even have anything to do with this life, you know, like I've never lived in this town before, you know, so it's, I'm guessing that maybe a lot of people are going through this, but specifically you, Scorpio, this kind of rules the energy of you, so I want you to know that that's okay. And, you know, because the feeling that I got really was scary, but it didn't technically relate to this timeline. It was something else, you know, so it's sort of like, how do you deal with those emotions? How do you, because we hang on to things from who knows when, right? See, there's something, everything keeps adding back up to, this Two of Cups is one of the most positive cards here, okay? again, there's an emphasis of, you know, maybe in your notebook, like write down who's your friends. You know, who are your friends? Who do you feel like you can rely on, right? Who can you count on? Which actually was a Pisces reading in March. Might be something that you want to watch. It's the preceding decan from you. You know, so of course you can learn from them also, because that's what you technically would progress into, I guess, in a watery sense, in that water element. Now, I see whatever you're working on also. This card just fell on it like a feather, the Six of Pentacles, for those of you who are blind, on the Eight of Pentacles. I see that whatever you're working on will put you in a position of monetary status, okay? Of being in a position to be able to put money out. And I heard to invest, right? Like you got to put the time in right now. Put, you know, again, these ideas, like don't spend your money frivolously. If you do spend it on pieces of the project. I mean, of course, I guess they say during Mercury retrograde you shouldn't buy electronics, but you can, if you need to, you know, maybe go through your things and be like, okay, what do I have that I can use to help me ascend whatever it is that you're working on, right? Like, do I have all the pieces? I also see that this can also be sort of receiving money from others too, which you rule other people's money. So it shows me that if you put in that work, that will enhance your abundance, okay? If you keep your nose to the grindstone, which I know that you're good at anyway, most of you are very dedicated to whatever your craft is, whatever you are interested in, you dive deep, right? Don't be afraid to accept from others, because that's sort of what the Two of Cups is also. Like, even if it's, say, like emotional support, right? Maybe you're not used to that. Maybe you're like, why would you do that? You want to support me? You know, you want to be a part of this, right? Because this is duality, right? This is a minor of Libra's card with the scales here. So as you have 3 8s, and it is the 8th month, see, it's important to communicate straight this August, okay? Like, send out, you know, because I see, like, the word manifestation is thrown around a lot, but there's something about that. Like, even if it's just a really long-term goal, I see that right now with this. It's just like, pew, and like you don't even know where it's going to land, but you're just shooting it in a particular direction, and I see that it happens over and over and over again. You want something, right? You have a piece of something now. Well, you seem to have a whole bunch of it later. Okay? There's more of it later. So 8 of them later, actually. And what's in between that 1 and this 8 is 7. So that's about patience. And again, taking the energy, putting it out there, what it is that you want. Keeping, even with Mercury retrograde, whatever, keep your mind in order. You know, maybe that's what this is too, is an advice. I heard let lion dogs lie. Right? Which means if something's asleep, if the baby's napping, you leave it alone. Right? You don't go pick it up and be like, oh, you're so cute. And it starts screaming and it ruins, you know, you got to take all this time. No. Keep your mind focused on the future. Okay? If you need to talk about your feelings again, I see that that's what your friends are for. Because your real friends, I told you this before, but your real friends, well, they support you and they care. And they know how you feel even if you don't tell them. because they can kind of feel it too, if they're really your friends, right? Because that's what friends do. We're in tune with one another. You know, we love one another. That's what friends do. That's what partnerships are supposed to do, right? Not sure what, well, sometimes the Four of Pentacles it's the one card where you're, I heard Virgo too. You get your like your aggression from your father, but I feel like it's a reserved aggression. Like it's like a, I heard like a stewing dad, something like that. Like maybe it's calm, right? But there's something underneath it that's really uncomfortable, and you get that from your father. And I heard, don't worry about it. You already know that anyway, so just, I mean, you can cut that out whenever you want, okay? Now, when it comes to any kind of tightness or being a little cautious, all you really got to do is, again, it's the same message. Just talk about how your heart feels. You know, what does your heart desire, Scorpio? You have to speak your desires, whether that's verbally, in your mind, outward. But I sense, because you're kind of a silent sign, and this is a Sagittarian card also, it's really about verbalization. You don't have to say it to anyone else. You can just say it to God. Say it to the Mother Nature, right? The Mother of Nature. But something like that. You know, maybe every morning, write 8 things that you want. I desire 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And every morning when you get up, look at that piece of paper and say it out loud. I desire blah. I desire da da da. Now, of course, you'll probably do it unconsciously first, right? But it would be wise to kind of go back and, you know, eventually, if you want to, and be like, okay, but why do I desire that? Because sometimes what happens is say we're asking for there's all these examples flying through my head. It's just important to figure out why, because sometimes what you're asking for, you'll get what you asked for, but it won't really be what you actually desire, because it's something smaller or deeper than that. Does that make sense? I guess I can give a personal example to close this out, because it's nice to talk to you. So I was homeless when I was about 13. And I stayed homeless for a while. I mean, I got my own apartment when I was, you know, I had a job and everything. I went to school, but I remember I would just say all the time, like, oh, I just want, like, a house. Like, I just want a house. I just want somewhere to live. I just want somewhere to live. You know? But then when I would think about it, you know, being that young, too, I mean, I thought I was so grown up. But the point is that, you know, really what I was wanting was to feel stable in myself. Right? Because I didn't have a stable home, upbringing, whatever. And so I was making it this physical thing to have the internal thing. But then once you start to realize, like, oh, I desire to feel stable in myself, then what happens is the universe or God or whatever, Mother Nature, starts giving you all these things that actually will bring you stability. You know, and of course you have to appreciate what it is that you already have, right? Because you feel like, oh, I don't have enough, or this, you know, whatever. But it's interesting when you ask for things. So it's important what those 8 things are, okay? I see there's one big one. And there's one that you don't need. That's what I see. All right. I love you so much. Happy August. You're doing a good job, by the way. Your readings have been, you know, go back and watch last August, last July. You know, you were having a rough one for a while, and I know you've been going through a lot, and I just want to let you know that you're doing a good job. Okay? And that I thank everyone who has been here. Okay? Anyone who's donated, anyone who's I've done personal readings with. It's really beautiful. You know, all the people I've connected to. I actually connect to a lot of Scorpios. There's been more Scorpios in my life this past year than collectively my whole life. So thank you for that. Thank you for that inspiration, for that exchange of energy. You know, I find it very successful. You know, there's nothing wrong with the shadow. There's nothing wrong with the shadow. Can we do the bird? Oh. No? That way? It's kind of like a swan. Used to be good at it. Oh, there we go. There's the eagle. All right. See you later, Gator. Bye.